basically this generation is more liberal, more tolerant, more Democrat-leaning than the one before. It's not just because they're young.
For another point of view, it's Hard News with Russell Brown and Wammo on Kiwi.
From publicaddress.net, the Hard News blog there, also to the Media 7 show on TVNZ7. It's Russell Brown. Good morning, Russell.
Good morning.
Now, of course, the Australian election was hung and no clear winner on the weekend. But, Russell, you're arguing that, in fact, there was a winner, and it was the advertising industry.
Absolutely. This Australian election has been unique in more than one respect, but I think one that hasn't quite got enough coverage is the sheer size of the advertising spend.
Wow, how much?
Unprecedented. $50 million. Most of that from the two main parties. Previously, I mean, they do spend a bit on advertising there because they pay for their own broadcast advertising over there, but previously the record has been more around $30 million. So it's nearly doubled.
Well, I suppose when you're not actually talking about issues, you've got to be able to spin the public some way.
Yeah, exactly. It's all been about personalities. In the final week, the advertising was all pretty much attack advertising.
Did they not have the same kind of spending rules that we have here? Or?
No, quite different. It's interesting how much they vary around the world. I mean, we provide some budget for political parties to advertise on broadcast in New Zealand. In Britain, there is no broadcast advertising. You're not allowed to advertise, basically. In Australia, it's open slather. And this time it was particularly open. And as I said, the advertising was relentlessly negative, not really based on any positive policy that either party was offering. The Labour advertising was a little more positive in tone, but basically it was all directed at smearing the character of the respective leaders.
And as you say, negative, but not overly creative either.
Well, it was sort of creative in some senses. Labour in the last week was generally agreed to be a spectacularly ill-advised Rocky Horror Show parody in which they put Tony Abbott, which didn't quite work.
Yeah.
And there were so many different ads because they were targeting different voter markets. In Western Australia and Queensland particularly, it seemed that the public were pissed off with Labour. So they were targeted in particular by both parties. But just the sheer size of it. I thought Todd Sampson on Gruen Nation. Are you familiar with the Gruen transfer?
I am. I had the host, Will Anderson, on the show recently. Yeah.
He's a clever chap, isn't he?
Yeah.
They're another winner out of this whole thing, and now the ABC is saying they're looking to move that Gruen format to all different kinds of subject matter.
Right.
Because for the purposes of the election campaign, they renamed the show Gruen Nation and did their customary analysis on the messaging in the campaign advertising, and it was actually brilliant.
Yeah.
And I thought Todd Sampson, who's the American guy, who's a regular panelist, came up with a great line. He said, "This is the Harvey Norman election."
Yeah. Bye.
Yeah, he said they've turned everything into a product. And especially for that last week of the campaign, they apparently spent $30 million. Maybe not quite in the last week, but the last week and a bit.
Wow.
They spent $30 million.
I just wonder if we should listen to some audio now from an ad called "Do You Really Know Julia Gillard?"
Yeah. Our video editor was kind of stunned at this one, actually.
It's just days to the election, so what do we really know about Julia Gillard? We know she can't stop the votes. We know she backstabbed Kevin Rudd and was put there by New South Wales power brokers. We know she's borrowing $100 million debt every day and wasting billions of dollars on school building rip-offs. We know she'll give us a new mining tax and a carbon tax that'll increase prices for families. We know she even opposed paid parental leave for families, and we know that not even Kevin Rudd trusts her. So how well do you really know Julia Gillard?
Authorised beat on Handable Bay, Canberra.
We haven't seen advertising like that for years.
No, and that kind of advertising pretty much dominated the campaign. It was like they were scared to have policies. I mean, there was the odd thing like the National Broadband Network, which may still deliver Labour to office because the wavering independents are all in rural areas that have terrible internet. But yeah, basically, and of course on top of that you've got to add at least $10 million for the lobby group advertising. Big tobacco, mining, a few others. who are still actually running anti-government ads. So it's been quite extraordinary. It's actually been very good for the TV networks as well.
Did the environment figure it all in the campaign? I mean, the biggest issue in the world right now is climate change, which affects probably Australia more than it does New Zealand.
Oh, absolutely. No, neither side really wanted to talk about that because even though one of the black marks against Kevin Rudd that helped him get rolled was that he backed down on an emissions trading scheme, it still seems that Labor doesn't want to make too much of a fuss about the fact that they would get back on and actually bring in an emissions trading scheme.
But the people of central Melbourne obviously care, voting in the first Green Party MP.
Yeah, that was remarkable. That's great. I mean, they've got 9 senators now as well, and Andrew Wilkie in Tasmania is it Tasmania? He's like an independent Green candidate who will probably favour Labor as well. So it looks like they might squeeze in. But just the whole nature of the campaign has been quite bizarre. We're actually looking at that on Media 7 this week. We record tonight, airs tomorrow night. We've got a guy called Harold Mitchell, who's a legendary Australian media buyer, who will have some commentary on that. And also Mike Williams, the former president of the New Zealand Labour Party, who's been over there having a look at how the media have handled things.
Good. Oh, well, that's...
it will be quite interesting, actually.
Something to look forward to tomorrow night after the 9 o'clock news on TVNZ7. Thanks.
Indeed.
Thanks, Russell.
Cheers.
Cheers. Russell Brown, also blogging at publicaddress.net.